This is the Good Neighbor Podcast, the place where local businesses and neighbors come together. Here's your host, Jeff Gardner.
Welcome to another episode of the Good Neighbor Podcast. Today we have another good neighbor on, Brent Laing of Weedman Barrie. Brent, welcome to the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Jeff. Excited to be here.
Yeah, man, I'm looking forward to the conversation. You are the first of the Weedman to come on the show, so I'm looking forward to digging more into that, as I know little about that world. But let's just start off right from the hop. What is Weedman? Let's get a deeper look into what it is, what you guys do.
Yeah, well, Weedman is a lawn care company. We do pretty much everything other than water and cut your grass. So weed control, obviously, fertilization, aeration, seeding, insect control, those types of things. And we also have a secondary brand, Mosquito Hero, which is pretty self-explanatory. We spray for mosquitoes in your backyard. And being in cottage country, that's something that it's still fairly new to us. But people are really loving it because I don't know about you, Jeff, but I like my backyard. And in the summer here in Canada, the 6 weeks of summer, 8 weeks of summer we get, I want to be outside. So that's a new brand that we've been introducing with a lot of success as well.
And it's called Mosquito Hero?
Mosquito Hero. We could be your Mosquito Hero.
I just could see you guys busting out a song. Who's saying that? Ricky Iglesias or something like that?
Yeah, I think so. Something like that.
Mosquito Hero, baby.
That's I know what you're talking about.
Yeah. Sorry, man. Just busting out a new tune. Where do you guys work? Where's the demographic? Where's the area? I mean,
well, we're located here in Barrie on St. Vincent Street. We've been here, 15 years probably. Before that, we were in Stayner, but we operate, it's a franchise, as those who are familiar with Weedman. So we have two franchises, the Collingwood franchise and the Barrie. They've been operating as one since 1992. So we basically go from the other side of Collingwood, just before Blue Mountain, all the way through Wasaga Beach to Elmville, out to Oro, the seventh line of Oro, and along Lake Simcoe to, this is the confusing part for people who call in. We don't do all of Barrie. We do to Mapleview, basically to the Molson Center, to the Sadlin Center, and north, and then over to Angus, and including out to Creemore, including Stayner. So when they drew those lines back in the late 70s, early 80s, Mapleview was not quite the monster it has become. So that is a common, well, I live in Barrie, why can't you service my lawn? It's like, well, it wasn't Barrie 50 years ago, so that's why.
So is there another Weedman that deals with the south of Barrie, I'm guessing? Yeah,
for sure. It's Innisfil Weedman, deals with literally on Mapleview. We are the north side of the street, and on the south side of the street, they deal. That's the line. So every town, every city in Canada has a Weedman by now. There are no franchises available other than resale. So it's pretty cool. We've been around 50 years.
Awesome, man. And how long have you been running the Barrie Collingwood?
My wife Jennifer and I just literally bought it in May from my parents. So I grew up in the business. My dad bought the Collingwood franchise in 1982. I was born in 1978, so I don't remember life without a green and yellow Weedman truck in the driveway. And when I say he bought the franchise, he bought an idea. The franchise was like 6 or 8 years old at the time, and he had a truck and a little bit of training from Des Rice, the founder. And my dad went knocking on doors, telling people who he was, and started spraying lawns himself. And, here we are 40 years later, and he finally was serious about retiring. I didn't think he'd ever be serious. And, my wife and I talked about it and said, I'd been in the business in and out a couple of times over the years, worked here through university, came back as kind of the operations manager, and then left to build another business. And when he was actually serious about selling, him and my mom, it just didn't feel right to see it leave the family after 40 years. So here we are, loving every minute of it, trying to keep it in the family.
Awesome, man. And sorry, how long did you say that was? I think I met your dad.
1982 is when he started the Collingwood one. He bought the Barrie one from a friend of his who introduced him to Weedman in 1992, and have been operating basically as one franchise ever since.
And sorry, how long ago did he sell it?
He sold it to us in May. So that's when the deal, May 1st, I think, was the closing date. It was a long process, as they often can be, not because of any complications other than the ones that are made up by certain professionals, potentially. My wife's a lawyer, so I can make fun of them.
Yeah. It's like built in.
Right.
Things got to be long and complicated because it's more valuable if they are for some reason.
You want to be careful too. I get it, but yeah.
Yeah. Really cool, man. I love that you guys are keeping in the family 40 years, man. That's awesome. Now, let's talk about, it may seem like a stupid question, but I know somebody's asking it out there. Why do all these things to the lawn? What do we get from that?
No, it's a good question. And we have some people that, you know what they get from it? They get their neighbor off their back. You know, they don't, they,
I got
people
one down
stop,
the street. Yeah.
which is, that's how some people, that's what they use us for. Some people it's, you know, a cottage, and they just want to, when they come up, they don't want to be walking on thistles. They want to use their lawn, but they don't need the best lawn on the street. And some people it's their baby, right? Like some people, they'll call and they're unhappy and they've got one weed or one blade out of place, and God bless them, that's what they want. So it's different things for different people. You know, the biggest advantage of a lawn is the cooling effect rather than concrete or even a dried out, you know, crappy lawn. And you know, one regular lawn in Barrie creates enough oxygen for a family of 4 every year. So there's plus side to that as well. That's the upside, but it's really, you know, aesthetics. And when you go out in your backyard, is it a place of pride? Is it a place where your kids can play and, you know they're not rolling in thistles or anything else? And it's somewhere that you want to be, right? It just looks better for most people. But we're a lot of different things to a lot of different people. We don't judge. That's why we ask a lot of questions when people say, "Can you give me X?" And it's like, well, what does X mean to you? Because to Jeff, a healthy lawn might be just one that's not embarrassing, and to Brent or somebody else, George or somebody, it might be, no, I want the best lawn on the street.
Yeah, that's a great answer, man. That's just great. And then mosquitoes. I didn't know that was even a thing. Obviously,
Yeah.
bug spray. I know of. I'm a camper, but I didn't know you could spray an area to take care of it. So, can you tell us a bit about that?
Yeah, and I didn't know a lot about it either. And once I heard about it, though, I asked mom and dad if they could use our lawn as a test, our property as a test lawn in Horseshoe Valley, where there's lots of mosquitoes. And they did, and the results were amazing to me. I mean, being able to sit out at night and not be constantly swatting, you know, at dusk there. And so yeah, it's a spray. It's basically once a month. You go in and you spray where those mosquitoes are. But just like lawn care, a big part of it is education. You'll show up to some places and people say, "I got so many mosquitoes." Well, they've got the rain barrels and standing water and little stagnant ponds and, you know, tarps over wood piles. And so all of these places that, you know, just if we could just change a few things in terms of making sure they understand that's where mosquitoes breed, you know, so anything they can get rid of is part of that. And then the rest is we just spray under bushes, you know, dark, cold areas where mosquitoes like to multiply. And we all know they multiply quickly. So it's generally once a month, kind of 5 times a year here, you know, May, June, July, August, September. And yeah, the results can be quite incredible, especially if you can convince your neighbors and create a bit of a bubble.
Yeah. I could see that being extremely beneficial, especially where you are. We're out that way quite a bit. Half my team lives out in Horseshoe Valley, and
Nice.
yeah, there's some mosquitoes out there. So you just mentioned a couple of things. Can we just can we do a couple of check a couple boxes for tips of reducing mosquitoes? So what are the general rules of thumb to reduce unnecessarily large amounts of mosquitoes?
The biggest thing is standing water. Any kind of standing water, even if you've got a tarp in your backyard and it's got little puddles in it. You know, lots of cedar trees are, you know, if you have a ton of cedar trees and you got to make a choice. What do I like better, the cedar trees or the mosquitoes? And I'm not suggesting you cut down all the trees, but if you live in the middle of a forest, it's going to be more complicated. But simple things like, standing water, tarps, like things like that, just leaving anything that stays wet and cool and shaded. So that's where they like to reproduce. So those are the kind of the simplest things for sure.
Okay, great. And then all the questions have their purpose, but some of them we like a little bit better than others. Some of them provide a little bit more insight into the human.
Yeah.
The story, I find human beings fascinating. The more I learn about one human being, the more I learn about myself. It's like revealing, almost looking into a mirror sometimes. But the story of how we got to where we are is always very interesting. Like we all have our own Lord of the Rings kind of story.
Yeah.
And it seemed like, correct me if I'm wrong, you were saying that you were in and out of the business a little bit, and then it seemed more like you took it over because you wanted it to stay in the family. Did you like this business at all? Like what brought you to making, to me, maybe not to some, that wouldn't have been a big decision, but to me, taking over a business is a big decision. We run a business. It's all consuming, and
it is.
It's a big decision. So what made you decide, I mean, Dad's selling it, but that doesn't mean we have to buy it. Why did you?
We've always been interested in entrepreneurship. I mean, I grew up in this business, but the business of business is business. And like you said, it is a full-time, it's not a job, it's a lifestyle
It
choice,
is
right?
a
Like
lifestyle.
when you need to be here, you need to be here. And I've always been okay with that, especially when it's for our family, right? And so that always made sense to me. And that was one of the reasons I left was when I came back in 2007, the idea was I was going to get trained to take over. And then, mom and dad just liked being in the business, especially dad liked being around too much. And it just was, he wasn't ready to leave. And I had another business opportunity to come up in financial services distribution, through a mutual acquaintance in the world of curling, where that's the other place I grew up. And it just made sense that that was going well and I needed to put more time into that. So stepped away, got that off the ground. And then right around the same time, this opportunity came up. So I love talking about business. I'm okay, like I said, with what some people would call the stress of it all. That's the excitement. You got to take the down. If you're going to get the upside, you got to accept that there's bigger downsides as well, and bigger commitments and things. So, and I knew the business, right? I grew up in university. I worked on the trucks. Like I've done everything we do here. And I think that gives me some credibility when we're training the guys. And I say, hey, I know that this job outside, when it's nice, it's awesome. When it's not nice, it's not awesome. But we got to keep going because Jeff needs his mosquitoes gone, or Jeff needs his lawn green, right? So it wasn't taken lightly. It was always in the back of my mind that this was the plan. And then for whatever reason, whether dad bought too many boats and motorcycles or lived too high on the horse, he kept the business longer than anticipated. But it's just been his life, right? 40 years, imagine. And that's why he was just here this morning. That was the other thing. I didn't want it to be cold turkey. I know, growing up in the business, seeing what he put into it and what him and mom gave up for this business, I didn't want it to be all of a sudden gone if he wanted to be around here. And so far I've been right. He's been around.
He's been lingering, has he?
But in a good way. I mean, we need his help. There's still so much I'm learning as we go.
Beautiful, man. Awesome. Yeah. I mean, when you look at who is best suited for taking over a role, and you were to say, well, he grew up in the family, he's done everything a part of the job, and he loves business, checking some pretty good boxes. So it doesn't seem like an outlandish idea for you to take over the business. And the fact that you love entrepreneurship, I mean, that's a big win in and of itself. But let's talk about, so education. We were talking about in the pre-show, education is a big deal for us. Marketing is complex, unnecessarily so, is what I found it being as in the industry for as long as I've been in. I think there's so many simple formulas, but because people are complicated, it's like, we can't accept this as simple. Let's make it complicated. Like I came from the fitness world. It's just move, eat well, and sleep well. That's it. Simple, done.
Right.
If you do that more than you don't, you'll be in shape, healthy, live a long time outside of an accident. But we make it so complicated. Yeah. And marketing is the same thing. So we really focus on educating, simplifying it. But what you do, I imagine, is the same thing. Like when I'm looking at my lawn, it can be, I can have your services, I can have cutters, I can have people trimming my lawn, I can have trees. There's so many things. So can you clarify some myths or misconceptions that people have in their mind right now? Like it's just suboptimal information and they're making decisions based on that information coming from the expert. Maybe we can make better decisions.
Yeah. And I think you kind of hit the nail on the head. I think a lot of people think lawn care, who haven't been really green thumbs or whatever, they think it's super hard to do and it's really complicated, and it just isn't. Not to say that it's easy to have I always say it's simple, but it's not necessarily easy for the same reasons. Like even myself, I commit some of the biggest faux pas in my lawn. We've got 2 young kids and I have an older son as well. And we're living life and we're running a business. So my lawn gets too long before I get to cut it. And if you cut a lawn that's 8 inches long down to 3.5 inches, well, you've really damaged that lawn in the next 3 or 4 days. But life gets out of the way. So it's not as complicated as it needs to be. I think that's part of it. And I think a lot of people think it's extremely expensive. Now it's not $50 a year, but for a few $100 a year, you can get somebody to come in and take care of all the things that maybe you're not qualified to do or don't know how to do it. The seed and feed that the lawn needs, fertilizer or seeding, and then the weed control. And then also what people are buying is they're buying, when you call us, we pick up, and you have questions about your lawn, we'll come out and have a look. We're on your lawn 6, 7, 8 times a year. And it's that, that expert opinion. And it's not easy. It's a living thing. So there are things where we have to call in help too. Even one of our guys has been here 22 years and he's like, Brent, I don't know what's going on here. And that's where the franchise idea is so awesome, where we can call head office and our experts, our technical wizards, and what are you seeing here? Send pictures, even have them come up. So it's great there. But yeah, I think it's not as expensive as people think most of the time. And it's not as complicated as people think to have a healthy lawn. I mean, if we can just educate people on how to cut it properly, even if you don't water it, it won't die. It may go brown as in the drought we're having kind of right now, but it will come back if you've done the right things. And people just don't know what they don't know. I mean, I didn't take a grass course in life. There wasn't one in high school. So it's really that education piece.
Yeah. And I mean, being a human is hard in and of itself, just getting by each day.
Right.
The groups of people out there that really do life well, I have found from having some as my mentors, reading the books that I read, they do only a few things. And that's why they do life well, because they've gotten really good at those few things. They got their health, they got their love life, they got their business, their expertise, their parenting. You check those 4 or 5 boxes and it's like, you only know 4 or 5 things, but it covers many important categories in your life, but you basically know very little about everything else. And I've found for me, the more I learn, the more I understand of my ignorance, how large it is. Every time I read something else, like, holy shit, I don't know anything.
Right.
So it just only so many things to know. So for me, when we have real estate agents on here, plastic surgeons or lawyers or whatever it is, the peace of mind knowing that it will be done correctly and they can take that off my to-do list, I'm willing to pay for that. And I think most people are, if they understand what they're buying.
Yeah.
I think that's just mainly it. Like, what are you collecting your money for? For me, it's sometimes comfort, but opportunity and access to things. I don't want to have to cut my grass, deal with my trees, sell my house, fix my basement, take care of my family. I can't do it all. I'm one person, there's only so many hours in the day. So more than not, the money I spend on the business is to advance the business. Almost everything outside of that business is to advance quality of life, which in most cases is reducing stress. And then, like there's obviously some pleasurable things. Like if I get a pool or something like that, fine. But most of the time, just knowing that somebody much better than me at this thing that does this thing for 8, 10, 12 hours a day, has the reps, has the hours, is taking care of it. I can check that box and not think of it. It's a fantastic thing. So you were talking about cost. Since we're on this topic, what is an average cost to have Weedman take care of all the things outside of cutting your lawn for the year?
Yeah, our average customer is about $550 a year. Some are obviously less and some are more, but that would be average. And that includes the government share, the HST. So for $550, that gets you your season-long fertilizer and weed control. And in certain lawns, that'll get you an aeration, which is just poking those holes. That's just a cultural practice. That's the best thing anybody could do for their lawn if that's all you did every year. Yeah, that's extremely important. That's why anybody that's a golfer, and you see, I know it's frustrating as a golfer this time of year, you see them, they start to aerate the fairways, aerate the greens and the tees. Well, they're doing that for the health of the grass. And it's no different in a home lawn. It gets used and it gets compacted and it just lets the lawn breathe and stimulates some new root growth. So that's kind of the average. I mean, depending if you've got a couple of acres of grass, it goes up from there. Or if you have a little postage stamp lawn, like some of them are maybe $300, $350 for the whole year, but it depends on the size of the grass. And, from there, it's what do you want? Do you want everything? I mean, some people just say, I just want everything. I want peace of mind, like you mentioned. And some people will say, well, I don't mind. You're going to check for those things, right? Yeah, we will. And we'll let you know if you need extra stuff. So again, it's really a la carte. It starts with every lawn needs fertilized, and not very many people aren't concerned about weeds when they call Weedman. So that's the basis of our programs. Season long fertilizer, season long weed control. When our customers say, hey, there's weeds popping up, they call us, and whether they're due or not, we go out and we hit those weeds for them again, because that's our service guarantee. That's how we've been the industry leader for so long.
Oh, really? So if things pop up when they're not supposed to, I call you guys, you come out, you take care of no additional charges.
You bet.
And you guys start, when does season start? What is it, like April, May?
Yeah, depending, but we are usually on lawns by the first or second week in April. And then it really ramps up as the weather warms up in the middle of May. That's when those dandelions pop up, and that's when our phones go nuts for 3 or 4 weeks. And then we wrap up by Thanksgiving. Usually most of the heavy lifting's done by the end of September. Really the growing season. Once your lawn slowed down and stopped growing, there's still things you can do to help put it to sleep, put it to bed, but that's our season. So it's always been seasonal, which for me was always a good thing, because I was, as I mentioned, I grew up in the curling world, the sporting world, and was chasing that dream around the world for a number of years, and it
Wow.
worked well for me.
Like professionally.
If there's such a thing, which unfortunately there isn't. I wish I was good at like golf or something that paid better. But yeah, no, I've played on the World Curling Tour. Really, curling's been the main focus of my life since I was about 15, and just recently has tapered off, but still involved in the game, coaching, and our kids are starting to get into it. So yeah, it's been a big part of it. Introduced to it from my parents, and that's how I met my wife. It's taken us all around the world. Even got to compete for Canada a handful of times. Played in the Olympics in 2018, which was cool.
What?
Yeah. No, it's been a big.
You're an Olympian?
I am. I can say that. Yeah.
Holy smokes. You're the first Olympian on the show, man.
There you go. Accidentally found him in lawn care, right where you knew he'd be, eh?
Come on. I was hunting for Olympians, and I thought,
Yeah,
Weed Man's got to have one.
lawn care, gotta be. Yeah.
Gotta be. Fucking
Yeah.
hey, man. That's amazing. But before we get into that, which I'm definitely going to pepper you questions about that now,
Sure.
I'm thinking of it. You're like 6 to 7 months is your
Yep.
season for $500.
Yep.
I mean, all things
crazy.
considered, pretty reasonable.
Yeah, for sure. And that's what I mean. That's one of the misconceptions. People call and we'll give them the price, and they're like, that includes tax, and that's for the whole year, and that's this and this. And it is. I mean, some people call and say, oh, that's way more than I thought too, because people just don't know.
Sure.
But some people want you to come to their lawn and get rid of the weeds and fertilize it for less than it costs to, get a Domino's pizza delivered. But that's just not the way the world works. But that's rare. It's way more common that people say, oh, I was expecting it to be a lot more.
I was.
Yeah.
Especially because I haven't used the service like that before for a season, but I have had guys take care of the cutting and the trimming of my lawn.
Sure.
And that's considerably more expensive in many cases.
Sure, and that's like every week, and we're all on that front. I mean, I know you meet a lot of businesses in town. We're always looking for a reputable kind of maintenance, lawn care maintenance, cutting service, because people always ask us. But again, they want it done for $25 a week, and that's just not, Jimmy down the street can do that, but not a reputable business with insurance and all the, paying their people fair wages and all those types of things. So that's always been a challenge.
Yeah, we got a number of them. But you $25 a week. That's just like your buddy's kid.
Exactly.
While he's in high school.
Yeah.
Okay. So now fire away on the Olympian.
Okay.
So other than the obvious, clearly curling puts a smile on your face. So now outside of business and curling, what puts a smile on your face, Brent?
Family time for sure. We love to travel. We traveled with our kids. My wife is an Olympian as well, and in curling, and so we traveled a ton. And our young kids, our daughters, traveled a ton with us, and they caught the travel bug. So we love to travel. I still love to golf. I worked in golf as well in my early 20s. That was one of the first things I left the business for after university. And again, the seasonality of it, because everything had to fit in around curling. It wasn't. There was no option for me. That was number one. So yeah, travel, golf, obviously curling, family. Those are the mainstays of our, of our family life.
Okay. A couple of rapid fire questions here. Favorite location that you've traveled?
Probably New Zealand. Close second would be Hawaii.
Worst experience on a travel destination?
Oh, it was kind of cool. We were in an earthquake in Bali one time. So we left fairly quickly as we could.
So,
but yeah, it was pretty cool. But it's because nobody got hurt. It wasn't one of the big ones, but that was right around when those big ones did hit Bali. I don't even know how many years ago that is. Probably 7 or 8.
So, is there a certain amount of months you guys travel? Like, it seems like you guys have traveled a fair bit.
Yeah, it's a big part. I always say, I've always been unemployable. That's the other reason I always loved business, right? Because you can train people to do what you do, and I'm not that smart, so it's not that hard to do what I do. But we used to travel about 120 days a year, starting late August, early September, and wrapping up by kind of mid to late April.
One thing I've learned about people saying that they're not that smart, they usually are the smartest people around, Brent. So we see. I see you.
Sure. I love that there's a system, and I just got to follow it. I don't have to question. Head office is there, and mom and dad have built this, and we're just here to tweak here and there to try and get a little bit better.
Awesome, man. So 128 days a year. Jesus, man. And is this can't be all for curling?
That was all for curling. Yeah, it's a full-time sport that doesn't pay you. It's a professional commitment since it came back to the Olympics in 1998, and the countries around the world really picked it up. Canada used to dominate. We don't anymore because so many countries are taking it seriously and professionally. But it's like any other Olympic sport. They're professional level, but they're starving athletes more or less, right? Like they're living together, and that's why the careers are so short. Curling careers are longer though. So there's most in my era, and it's less now, but we had families and jobs and kind of fit curling in all of the holidays you could take, or you didn't work jobs that were in the winter, those types of things. But yeah, it was all for curling. We would play 120 games in a year.
Holy smokes, man.
Yeah.
So 2018, where was that? I should
That
know
was
that.
in Korea, Pyeongchang.
So you guys,
South
you
Korea.
and your wife were in Korea playing for Team Canada.
I was playing in 28. So she played in 2014 in Sochi, Russia, which was we've been to the last. She was in China, the COVID games, which was completely different. She'd have to tell you the story. I wasn't allowed to go watch. I was in Korea in 2018, and then she was in Sochi in 2014. And the Sochi Olympics were crazy, like Disneyland for adults, really.
In Russia.
The venues and everything else. And I mean, politics aside, and I know how
Yeah.
much they spent and bankrupted parts of the country. I realize that. So not politically, politics aside, it was unbelievable what they did, the show they put on, the venues and everything else. So yeah, we've been fortunate the last 3 Olympics. One of us has been there. We only have one medal, and it's not mine. So if you want to see an Olympic gold medal, I can borrow my wife's and show you sometime. But
This is such a great line. We only have one, and it's not
yeah,
mine. So
yeah. Well, I
talk
spent
to the medalist, my wife.
exactly. I spent my whole life trying to become world class at something, and I'm not even the best in my house.
I know you've told that joke
Yeah.
before. It's a good
That's
one,
a
man.
go-to. Yeah.
That's my go-to.
Yeah.
Oh man, that's amazing. Holy shit. Good for you, man. Just to be able to commit to something for that long, become that good at it. You are, I mean, I'm breathing rare air here talking to one of a handful of you guys. There's not a lot of Olympians ever, period. There's not a lot of Olympian curlers. That's
Nope.
getting even more reduced. And you got a medalist in your family. That's just amazing. How did we do in Canada in those last 2?
We when we were there, we finished 4th, so we did well in the round robin. Lost the semifinal to the Miracle on Ice. The U.S. men actually won the Olympics in 2018, and they never really won a World Curling Tour event. I mean, don't get me wrong, they're obviously a good team, but we're not supposed to do that, and they did. And then we lost the bronze medal game. We never really recovered. We were there to win the gold, and looking back, that's one of the regrets, that we were not. We didn't bounce back the way we should have. But so, yeah, my wife Jennifer, won the gold in 2014. The men won in 2014 as well. 2018, the women didn't do very well, and we finished 4th. And then 2022, it's a weird format, but Team Canada, my wife's team, actually finished tied with the team who won the gold medal and didn't make the playoffs, didn't make the Final Four, even though they had the same record. It went to basically a shootout, kind of like a long drive contest, if you will, in golf. It's a draw to the button, which isn't really the game, but yeah, interesting. And that's just the way it goes. So, but yeah, it's been awesome to watch curling get better around the world. As much as it makes it harder for us and harder for Canada, it's just better for the sport. It's growing really, really rapidly around the world.
That's amazing, man. It's just amazing. There's so many follow-up questions that are going through my head. So let me just ask one. Greatest moment that you had. We told us about your favorite place. You've had these rich experiences that most of us humans won't have. We all have our own rich experiences, but some of them are more rare than others. Some of them you have to practice for 25 years to get there, like being an Olympian. Few of us commit to one avenue for that long and get to that level. It's rare. So do you have a favorite moment outside of your kids? You can't say.
Yeah, no, I know. I was gonna say, just to clarify, this is favorite curling moment, and there's a handful of them. I mean, winning the first Canadian championship, we had some success in juniors, and when you do that with your buddies and you get to wear that maple leaf, that's pretty cool. But it was always from 1998, when I guess I would have been about 18 or 19 years old. That's when it was an Olympic sport again. So for a long time, it was about the Olympics, and we were close a couple of times. We were favored. 1 year to go. To even 2010, we lost the final to go. Not that we were a better team. The other team went and won the gold medal in 2010 in Vancouver to a home Olympics. How cool would that have been? Then the next Olympics, we were kind of favored and we bombed. And then the next one was the one that it came down to one shot. So again, when I'm telling stories, it's 20 years for 30 seconds, and in that 30 seconds we were going to go to the Olympics or we weren't. And thankfully we did, and it was almost a blackout experience in terms of the celebration, and just that feeling it's really hard to explain, and it's hard to replace, right? Like you said, it's because of all the losses, it's because of all the time. And I never call them sacrifices because I was doing exactly what I wanted to do, but the things I missed, whether it's kids' birthdays or friends' weddings or family outings or whatever it was, it didn't feel like a sacrifice to me. But there's a lot that you miss out on if you want to be truly world class, and it's no different. All of those skills transfer so easily into business. It's the same. Everything's the same. You set a goal, you make a plan, you execute the plan, you sit down and say what went well, what went wrong, what do we need to change, and you do it all over again. And you just continually do that, and success is inevitable if you continually do that well, especially in business where I don't have to lose for you to win. In curling, somebody had to lose for us to win. And oftentimes we were the ones on the other side that had to lose and watch somebody who well and have competed against go off and live their dream that is also yours, and it means you can't do it. So business is more fun. We can help each other all win, which is a lot better.
One of my favorite things about business.
Yeah,
raised as an athlete, have been in sport most of my life. Obviously never took it to your level, but that was one of the big lessons, is somebody's always losing for me to succeed. And it's unfortunate. That, I know that in business, but many business owners don't know that. And the way they look at their competition is, how do I crush or kill them? There's this animosity there. There's this, I have to win at business by beating you. When I look at, there is no winning of business. There is no winning at love. There is no winning at fitness. It's just staying in it. I think that's how we win at those things. There's no summit of the mountain. My preference would be we all succeed together, but at least if our team is staying in it and helping more than hurting, I think that's the ideal for us anyways. What a story, man. What a story. That's so cool. That's so cool. Let's pivot a little bit, go to the opposite side of the coin, talk about hard shit, simply because I love Denzel's Washington. I find myself rambling. One of the reasons why I'm a host of a podcast. Apparently I'm a talker. So sometimes I want to provide enough context to know that the person knows exactly what I'm talking about. And I've watched them back, and sometimes it's like 4 or 5 minutes of providing context, and I'm telling myself to shut up as I'm watching this, like, get on with it. So Denzel Washington goes up on stage. This is my new version of this context. Never tried this before. Okay. He goes up on stage and he talks. They're asking about how is he so successful. And he talks about falling down 7 times, get up 8, keep moving, consistent, keep growing. But one of the things that I love the most is he says, ease is a greater threat to progress than hardship. And that's what this question is about: trials and tribulations, hardships that our guests have gone through, to help reveal to the listeners that hardships are going to come. Voluntarily, you're going to move into hardships, probably, if you choose to be an entrepreneur. But involuntary hardships are going to come as well. And should we look at them as a burden or an opportunity? We want to help spread the message of, just like your successes are to be celebrated, some of the most beneficial points in your life will likely come from the hardest moments you've gone through. For me, busting both of my legs led me to a path of painkillers. And I used to justify it by saying, I did what my doctor said. But I was in my 20s. I could have chose a different path. Either way, what happened, happened. And that took me down a very difficult moment of my life. But by choosing to get out of that, turned into the best decade for me, without a shadow of a doubt, to the point where I developed skills to now be a better leader in my business, have a better business, have a more fulfilling life, and actually be a counselor at an treatment facility, which once was helping me. So I now look back on, there's no way I would remove that experience. No way. I'm grateful for it at this point. In the moment, had you asked me, I would have hated it. I would have done anything to get out of it. But, you get that clarity in hindsight. So we love to ask our guests. Hopefully that was, it was 2.5 minutes rather than 5. So I'm working it down.
Progress.
Hopefully that was enough context to be, what are the values of our hardships? And do you have any that you can share with us that sucked in the moment? I'm sure they did. But when you look back in hindsight, you wouldn't remove that ingredient from the recipe that is you, because it's led you to living the life you do today.
Yeah, and I mean, I think a lot of them for me will go back to curling moments, and I've won 3 Canadian championships at the men's level and competed in 16. So, you know, if I didn't lose those 13, and let's be honest, in sports, you win or you lose. And so I went to 16 and won 3. So we lost 13. And I think I was in nine Canadian finals, and some people saying, you only won 3. And it's like, yeah, I only won 3. That's how it goes when you're in that situation. There's 2 teams, one wins, one loses. But in the moment, yeah, man, does it suck. You know, you talk about breaking your legs, but it does kind of doesn't define you. It molds you into the person you're going to become, and that it builds that mental toughness. And growing up in sport, and I've had multiple amazing coaches. One in particular is a PhD in sports psych and teaches at the University of Alberta. And he used to love it when we would lose. And it was like, what? He's like, I hope you guys lose and keep losing, because you learn way more from the losses than you do from the wins. And it was a 4-year plan towards the Olympics. And in our first year, we struggled and he loved it. And we learned more if we came out of the gates and we played well and somehow we won and we had success, we wouldn't have really looked in the mirror very hard. And we wouldn't have learned very many lessons. And when it came down to those tough games you're going to have to win down the road to get where you want to go, we might not have been prepared for it. So that's the, you know, the sporting example. And it always comes down to controlling the controllables for me. Yeah, you can pour me, and that's a big message in the world today. You know, nothing's my fault, everything's everybody else's fault. And anybody who kind of believes in that or lives by that kind of code, in my experience, doesn't live a very fulfilled or very happy life. Because if we can't just focus on, and I'm not saying that there's not disasters and not tragedies in the world, of course there are, and it's hard when something strikes a family member or something like that. You're never going to look at that as a good experience, no question. But if all we ever focused on was what we can control, and every time that you get knocked down, you know, the Michael Jordan story, right? Got cut from his high school basketball team, and would he have become who he became without that experience? Who knows, right? We don't know. And I always, it's not that I believe everything happens for a reason, but I believe that everything that's happened to me has got me to this point, and I've been able to live life on my own terms, a life by design. Because of the things I've learned from the losses, because of watching people where I wanted to be, how did they get there, and talking to them. And none of them got there very easily. If it was easy, everybody would do it. And I'm not interested in what everybody else does. I'm interested in what we want to do and what our life plan is and what our life by design looks like. So without those losses, and when I said that the biggest win was that 2017 Olympic trials, it's because of all the hardships before that made it even more special. If things are easy, they're not that fulfilling. You know, if they don't take very long, and, you know, all these books that, you know, you would probably read a lot of the same books. It's like, if there's an easy path and a hard path, choose the hard one, no matter what, because you'll learn more, you'll become stronger, and it'll end up being a lot more fulfilling and probably a lot more valuable in the long run. Whereas most people will take the path of least resistance and wonder where their life went. So turns out I like to ramble too, Jeff.
But you're a wise dude. I can listen to that stuff. I mean, you just summarized that like 20 of those books behind me in 5 minutes.
Well, yeah, and probably a lot, like I said, probably a lot of the same books. And my coach, the sports psych, he got me into a lot of those books. And yeah, there's so many people to learn from out there. And you talk about mentors, and I've had a ton of great ones on the ice, coaches, in business, everywhere. And some of the books you read, you don't even have to know the people now. The access we have to books and YouTube and everywhere else, like even social media, can be a positive influence on our life if you follow the right people.
Yeah. Amazing, man. Awesome. I mean, it was so precise to the answer that I shouldn't say I'm looking for a specific answer, like I'm looking for confirmation bias, but I feel like there is one best answer for that question. And that's what you're talking about. That's what you shared there. Way more losing than winning. Yeah. And it's still so fulfilling. And that's the point, where we live in a world of marketing. So there's obviously a lot of selling, a lot of marketing. And if one of our staff meets 100 businesses and is able to solve the problems of 20 of them, and they come on as clients, that person is succeeding. They are living financially pretty well. They're probably feeling very great about themselves. they're getting recognition, they're probably getting awards, and we're sending them on trips. That's 80% of the time they're getting no to or rejected or get out of here.
Yeah.
That's a life of rejection. And yet it's still so good if you have good intent to it and you understand the process. But one of the things that I like the most about what you said is a life by design. I think that is, for me, kind of the pinnacle of being a human is I fail or succeed by my choice rather than marching to somebody else's beat, because there's some monotony, I don't know, something mundane and robotic about just doing what somebody else tells me and not really caring, rather than going out there kind of like an adventurer and figuring it out. And you're going to fall and crack your head and scrape your knees. But there's some, I don't know, a real freedom to it. Well put, man. Well put. Back to the weed man. We got you on the stage. 1,000, 1,500 of your ideal people out there that you can impact the most looking at you. We hand you the microphone. We give you 90 seconds. What do you want to tell these people? People who have bought from you before and stopped, people that are currently buying from you, people that have never heard of you before, but all have a need for your service. What do you say to these people?
Well, I say that, you just have to look at our history and our, our reputation, our even Google reviews, which for better or for worse has become a big part of it. But, we're 4.8 or 4.9 stars. And that just speaks to it's our family's reputation. It's not just Weedman. Weedman in general has a great reputation. Don't get me wrong, but it's our family name we put out there, and we don't take that lightly. We've had customers for 20, 30 years. And if they were in the room, obviously a heartfelt thank you. They've supported not just our business, but our family. They helped put me through school, right? They helped, put food on the table and helped us live the life we wanted to live. And to any potential customers, we don't take the opportunity to service. And I know it's just a lawn, right? But we don't take that lightly. Your hard-earned money, after tax dollars, we know how hard it is to get ahead. So when you lay that money out there, we want to give you that value. And that's number one for us, the customer service. It's not the customer is always right, but the customer always deserves what they paid us for. And that's results, whatever the results are for them. And it is that partnership. It comes with an education. It comes with a homeowner's manual. That was a huge thing that I've spent a lot of time on. Like most people, they don't understand much about the lawn. So it's a partnership, right? It's not that customer, business relationship where this is your fault, this is your fault. We're on the same team here. And that's how we build our business from the inside out, even within the office, out to the service technicians, our managers, all those people. So I think it just comes back to, and again, being local. When people call us, sometimes they're amazed that we answer the phone. And it's like, well, why wouldn't we answer the phone? You're the lifeblood of our business. You're not getting in the way of our day. You're the reason we're here, right? And so that attitude, and that came right from my dad, right? He had to do that. And he was looking people in the eye personally in the beginning saying, yeah, I can do this for you. And then if you have any friends that, the biggest compliment anybody can give you is a referral, as you know, in your business, on the podcast, it's how it's set up, probably by design, because that is the number one compliment we can get, to the point where we'll even pay people when they do it as a thank you. And I know we're not buying those referrals. It's after the fact.
So thank you.
As a thank you. Yeah. Hey, we appreciate that you went out of your way to tell somebody that needed our service that you think that highly of us, because they're putting their name on the line too. Hey, Jeff, you recommended this guy and they didn't do a very good job. Like what are you doing to me here? Right. It's not a small thing. I don't lightly recommend businesses or friends or anybody. It has to be somebody that I trust and that I believe in. So we don't take that lightly. And it's a great challenge to come in every day and think of how can we continue to be better? How can we continue to offer better service? Continue the name Weedman, but also the Laing family name in building this business for 40 years.
Awesome, man. Way past 90 seconds, but all worth it. What's the best way to connect with you guys, Brent? People want to get in touch. How do we?
Yeah, I mean, website, if they want to check us out, it's weedmancanada.com. Pretty straightforward. We've taken to Instagram. My wife is much more savvy at that. So what is our Instagram handle? I think it's Weedman Barrie _Collingwood. So we do some fun stuff. We get the kids involved, dressed in the Weedman stuff, to just reemphasize that it's a family business through and through. And then the good old fashioned telephone. Our phones still ring and people still want to talk to us. And if you can't remember, it's obviously 705-721-WEED, WEED, 721-9333. So it's pretty easy to get in touch with us. And whatever it is you're looking for, whether it's just some free advice, we're okay giving that too. We're all about doing what we can to help people get where they want, because they're going to remember us when they need us.
Awesome, man. Last question, secret one. A lot of those things behind me molded me. My mentors molded me. I've been very lucky to have some really great teachers in my life, from my father to business coaches and sport coaches like yourself. And in my early 20s, this mentor, she's still in my life. She first encouraged me to start thinking about my impact as a human.
Mm-hmm.
I have a ripple effect. Every human does. What is it? What does it look like? Is it more positive than negative, vice versa, indifferent? I'm affecting somebody somehow, whether I do or don't do. Somebody is the collateral of my doing or not doing. And she encouraged me to reflect on my impact up to that point. At 23, I was not doing that. It was like girls, parties, fast cars, money, whatever, superficial stuff. But then I started to grow up a little bit. She taught me to be very intentional about my impact for the day. What do you want your impact, the outcome of this day to be? Because you may not be here tomorrow. She was the first to plant that seed that getting more time is very much out of my control. My control only is involved in the time that I'm given. Something beyond me has to provide me with more time in that life account, if you will. I only control to not even 100% extent what I do with the time. Even some of that is out of my control. But reflect on your impact up to this point, intentional on your impact for the day, and then for however long you are here, what would you like your impact to be? And that is the tip of the spear for me. That is the compass. Most of those things are right here. So I have them with me, pointed in my direction. Everybody asks me why they pointed the opposite way. It's like, I didn't get them for you. I got them for me, man.
Yeah.
It's amazing. Everybody asks the same question. I can't read them. You're not meant to if you want to hear, but they're keep me dialed in, because being a human is hard. So it's one of the things that I'm most curious about is, are other humans thinking about this? And if they are, what is it that they want their impact to be? So I am born, I die. What does the middle equate to? We love to ask the guests on the show. Brent, what would you like your impact to be?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I mean, it's changed. In the beginning, the impact was selfish for, curling and really the feeling. It wasn't about the trophies. I don't need the recognition. I wasn't the skip of the team, so I was never going to be the famous one, which I didn't want anyway. It was more the feeling and the camaraderie of being known as a great teammate. So I guess that wasn't selfish, but that was huge to me. I wanted to make the people around me better. And I always wanted to surround myself with people who made me better. And that was a huge part of competing for me. And then the kids were born, and everything flips, and you want to be that, you want to show them. And we talk about it all the time. My wife talks about it constantly. She's in the middle of writing a book right now, and that'll be a big message in it. And it's just to show them that anything is possible, that don't listen to the rest of the world. It's the old quote, if people aren't laughing at your dreams, they're not big enough. And that's the new thing, to show them. And that's part of why we continued to play. Maybe not longer than we should have, because we were still super competitive. I mean, my wife just retired and she was still ranked 4th in the world. But it's that idea of anything is possible. People told us you can't do it. A young kid from Meaford can never play at a Briar, let alone 16 of them. You'll never go to the Olympics, those types of things. And it's not supposed to be possible, but it is. And the people who do it are no different than I was, obviously. And then also, and you kind of touched on it, one of the, a book and a mentor, a guy I follow and listen to his podcast, Ed Milet's his name. And he says he runs his life like he's going to meet himself, his perfect version of who he could have become when he passes on. And his biggest fear is that he won't recognize the guy. So his whole, every decision he makes is to, and I'm not sure I'm that evolved yet, but that's when you leave, you want to leave an impact, obviously on the family, on the people you care about, but maybe in the sporting world, maybe we can leave some type of other impact, whether that's through junior curling, coaching, all those types of things. Just share some of the things we've learned and continue to make the people around us better. But it is, for me and for my wife, for Jennifer, it's really about inspiring the kids, showing them that anything is possible, whatever that happens to be for them. I really don't care. I just hope that they chase something with everything that they have.
Damn. You should get your own podcast, Brent. I've done over 330 of these now, and I definitely have my favorites, and I am biased. If people start talking about life and impact and deep shit like that, I'm going to like those more, but you got some good things going on, man. This has been a great conversation. Appreciate you doing what you do out in Barrie and Collingwood, having the family name attached to a reputable business like that and making it a reputable business. And then all the other things that you share with us, just fantastic. I mean, not a lot of people have done what you've done. There's way more employees than there are entrepreneurs, number one. So that's uncommon, although that's all that comes on the show, and we're privileged to speak to them. But an Olympian, father, somebody that seems like you enjoy your life, at least that's what you've presented today. That's rare in and of itself sometimes. But you've been great, man. You've been super forthcoming, super sharing, and just a pleasant to talk to.
Awesome. No, I appreciate it, Jeff. And yeah, thanks for picking up the day. It was a great morning already, but similar to you, I just love talking about this kind of stuff and those books behind you. And so really appreciate the opportunity. And yeah, hopefully we'll meet one day, not through the squares of Zoom or whatever platform we're currently on, but yeah, would love that opportunity one day.
Absolutely, man. You enjoy the rest of the day until we speak again, pal.
All right. Thanks, Jeff.
Bye-bye.
Thank you for listening to the Good Neighbor Podcast Midhurst. To nominate your favorite local businesses to be featured on the show, go to gnpmidhurst.com. That's gnpmidhurst.com or call 705-413-3775.